Yeah, I see your union cards. Hey, dudes. Hey, dudes. Hey, dudes.
About by 2 then, right?
I think this meeting is actually going to end quickly or relatively.
No. Hey, it did. Speak closer.
Turn your phone off.
It's not working. Oh, there we go. All right. Think we're all set. This is ready. Time being 9:01 a.m. on May 18th, 2023. I'd like to call to order this meeting of Kane County's Public Service Committee. Clerk, please call roll for attendance.
Gums,
Comes here.
Lewis, Sturgis, Tepe,
Tepe here.
Williams,
Williams here.
Young,
Young here.
Sanchez.
Sanchez present.
You have a quorum in the room.
Would all rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If someone could please ask for unanimous consent to approve the minutes of April 20th, 2023.
Tepe so requests.
Any objections in the interest of amendments? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Before we go to public comment, I just want to let everyone know, I'll kind of give you the update on the 2023 consolidated election topic.
Good morning.
The state's attorney and I are trying to schedule a special meeting of this committee. We're hoping for next week, but it's really busy here already in this room next week. Her schedule is very tight, so we're kind of going back and forth on setting up a time. We're hoping for next week to have a special meeting to discuss the 2023 consolidated election and also an update on the U.S. Alliance grant. We wanted to give it a proper amount of time to discuss and have everybody come and give comments and hopefully get their questions answered. So just look forward to that. We were hoping to have it scheduled by today so everybody would know it's coming, but that is what is in store, hopefully next week, fingers crossed. So we will let you know about that as soon as we know. That being said, we'll move on to public comment. So anyone who wishes to deliver public comment today, I have a couple signed up and I will go to those first. If it's off agenda, we give you 3 minutes. If it's on agenda, 5 minutes. If you're talking about the U.S. Alliance issue as well, I'll consider that as on agendas related to the 2023, consolidated election. So first speaker today, Mr. Jim Whittington.
Good morning. I'm a 45-year voting resident of King County. And I did speak at, I think, the last meeting here. As far as I know, nothing's happened since then. My comment's really going to be a series of questions. I was on the website this morning just to try to figure out the organization chart for King County government and who really runs the King County government. I couldn't really tell who does King County Clerk Jack Cunningham report to. Doesn't seem to report to the board. There's been previous meetings where we were told that he was requested to attend this meeting so that he could answer questions. And so far, he's been missing in action. His title is Kane County Clerk, but I wonder if he's Kane County King, because he doesn't seem to be accountable to anybody. We have all these questions and no answers. I've heard that the state's attorney is conducting an investigation. Anytime I hear that term now, it's where issues go to die. Things have been investigated for years and nothing ever happens. Durham just issued a report. I don't know how many years he was working on that. But in any event, I don't understand why he doesn't seem to be interested in accounting for the decisions that he's made. Why he's not here to answer to the people that pay the tax bills, that pay his salary. So I really want to know, where is Jack Cunningham? Is there a Kane County edition of Where's Waldo? Where's Jacko? Because he's not here. Maybe he's hiding in the basement here. Maybe he's under a table listening, or he's got a surrogate here to report on what's being said. But this continued hiding from his constituents, to me, is an indication. Well, number one, it's arrogance, it's condescension, and a lack of accountability. Perhaps it's cowardice. He's afraid to admit the truth that, basically this arrangement with this alliance, let's just call it what it is. It's a bribe. That's all pure it is. And, I don't know. I'm just so frustrated with the whole thing. I don't know if you, by the way, this alliance has made national news now. There's a second county in Illinois that's accepted a bribe. It's Macoupin County. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Downstate Illinois, south of Springfield. And apparently they're going to use some of the money to buy a warehouse to, to hide all the Zuckerberg machines, the Dominion machines. I'm not sure. But I'd like to know where Jack Cunningham is and when he's going to finally appear and answer the questions that need to be answered. I guess the final thing is, okay, so I'm asking how is the government organized? But I really want to know, where's the leadership on this issue? I don't see the chairman here today. I don't know how many of you, I don't know if all the board members are here today. I know you call the roll, but there doesn't seem to be any leadership on this issue. Everyone's just kind of silently hoping that we're going to go away. and this question is going to go away. You're just going to sweep it under the carpet. Well, it's not going to go away. We're going to keep coming back until we get an answer. You know, so my last question would be, what part of no don't you understand? What part of no don't you understand? The answer is no to this. This is not a public-private partnership. This is an illegal action, and it needs to be rescinded immediately. Thank you.
Next speaker, Debbie Andrus.
My name is Debbie Andrus and I've lived in King County.
Debbie, you might want to pull the microphone down.
Sorry,
Yeah, it's-
better.
Yeah.
Approximately 50 years. I've been attending the county board meetings and the public service meetings since March 2023. I've come here looking for answers. My comments are very similar to his. I realize that these meetings are not a setting for open dialogue. However, all the people that have attended since March have used this opportunity to bring our concerns directly to you. We have asked many questions over the last 3 months regarding the $2 million grant that has been offered to Kane County by the U.S. Alliance of Election Excellence. We have asked many questions regarding the April 4th consolidated election, providing a detailed list of inconsistencies that cannot and have not been rectified. And it has been 6 weeks since this election. We've been diligent in our attendance and have demonstrated that we, the people of Kane County, take both matters very seriously. At this point, considerable time has passed for both. When we first arrived, we shared that we would not be going anywhere. We would have thought by now that there would have been answers, and because of this, our concern is that these issues have been put on the back burner. Thinking if you wait long enough, we'll slowly trickle away and stop showing up. We're here seeking free and fair elections, elections with the highest integrity and optimal management. We believe private money should be kept out of our election process. And if you're on the other side of this impasse, we wonder what must be your position on this matter. Is this a case of any means to an end? I'm here asking that you find an opportunity to provide answers to the many questions we have asked about the grant and the election. Across the nation, millions have come to terms with the idea that there are two parties, the uniparty and the party of the people. If you are not with the people, you are against the people. And by the way, there is no such thing as, quote, eating our own, a term I have heard associated in certain circles from Republicans who do not like the fact that they are being held accountable. The definition of accountable is being the one who must make an obligation or suffer the consequences for failing to do so. Accountability is not a Republican or Democrat idea. It is something that we, the people, expect from everyone who is holding an elected position. Accountability is nonpartisan, as are free and fair elections. And lastly, Jack Cunningham has disappointed his constituents, many of whom believed he was a trustworthy conservative elected official who cared about the voters of this community. His absence speaks volumes.
Sylvia Schrig. Real quick, I'm assuming at this point, most people are going to be discussing something on agenda. So if you're
It's on agenda.
discussing something that's off agenda, just let us know. Otherwise, it's assumed it's on agenda. Thank you.
This is on agenda. Dear board members attending in person, dear members of the public, and those viewing remotely. As a poll watcher at the 2023 Kane County consolidated elections, I went to multiple sites during early voting and on election day. In general, my observation is that early voting is a flawed system. Early voting is a flawed system. Number one, the expense seems disproportionate to the need. To give an example, at one of the locations, there was an average of 26 voters per day at the cost of 4 judges, sitting there all day, plus the technical support. If a machine goes down and somebody has to replace it, for example. Number two, the training and implementation of training was inconsistent from place to place. At all locations, they had signs telling people IDs were not required, but could be helpful. In some locations, the election judges consistently told voters that though not required, if they had their ID, it could be scanned and expedite the process, which it did in the cases where somebody mistyped the birth date, flipping the numbers, and the ID prevented that error. However, at other locations, the judges said they were told to never scan the ID, precisely because sometimes the ID in being scanned popped up 2 or 3 people for that same name. How come we have several people pop up with one ID? Other election judges said that sometimes, so I cover that, other places, when people came with the ID in hand, they were told by the judges that the judges could not ask for it, could not use it. They went from, we can't ask for it, for we can't use it. And the voters were complaining because they wanted their ID used and it was not used. Some of the voters said they were confused because one judge had told them before it would be helpful and now it was shunned. What is the problem of using the ID of a voter who brings it in hand and wants it to be used? Why are judges at certain locations almost militantly opposed to the voter showing any documentation? Number 3, the difference between early voting and election day voting breeds confusion. On election day at one location, there were as many as 40 people who stopped by to vote, thinking they could vote there. But now the place where their spouse voted on Monday was not available to them on Tuesday. Early voting provides midstream tabulation. Is it legal to have a count before the count? During early voting, there is no daily counting of the votes. But because of the difference in process between early voting and election day, the early voting machines get closed up on the last day and the machine tape is printed. What happens with that tape? Who sees that tape? When do they see those results? You would expect the judges who are responsible for that location to see it, to sign it, to have some custody. But then that opens the door for a count before the count and a whole night of preparing how to adjust unfavorable results. During a 15-day early voting period, procedures are changed midstream. One particular procedure that changed this time was the logging of affidavits. Why was that log required originally and why is it removed? Which ballots require an affidavit? There was one case of a voter requiring assistance in which the voter demonstrated cognitive impairment. Is this a valid reason to have assistance in voting? Would someone reviewing the affidavit question that vote? How many other affidavits would have questionable reasons for voting? What could happen to those affidavits if the person receiving them decides they are not valid and simply destroys them? Wouldn't the log help prevent the disappearance of a questionable affidavits or the production of additional ones? Getting rid of that log is mocking the responsibility of responsible election judges. By extending the voting period, not only are more election judges needed, but so are more poll watchers needed. Early voting makes transparency almost unattainable. The use of machines requires extra staff and cost. At one location during early voting, one of the machines was out of commission several days, with staff having to come to fix it or replace it. The use of machines does not necessarily make the process smoother, faster, or cheaper. Back in 2018, Jack Cunningham stated that it was hard to find election judges. He had tried to reduce the number of judges to 3, and it had not been well received. It seems that if it is hard to find enough judges, we shouldn't multiply the need for them by extending the election period by weeks. Instead of taking outside money, we can run a lower cost, more transparent election where real local people follow the chain of custody and observe the process every step of the way. Thank you.
Is Mark Schrig here to speak?
So yes, it's Mark Schrig. My wife and I were poll watchers, as she just alluded to. in the most recent consolidated election. And since then, we've been poll watchers of the Kane County Board. My observations concerning the election judges and technicians at the polling sites is that they want to do a good job. They may lack training, they have biases about methodology and maybe opposed to change, but I don't see them necessarily trying to cheat. My observation of the Kane County Board is much less favorable. When it comes to follow-up regarding public comments made about the election results, and the election process, where are the elected members in this process towards solution? Are the criticisms unfounded? Are the facts unreal? Are the people who make them delusional? Where are the board members who are supposed to be looking for the solutions? Are they intimidated and made cowardly by the professional politicians in their midst? Have they lost the notion of statesmanship where they see the injustice of the disenfranchised and fail to correct it? What does the law mean? What do their oaths mean? Do they really only work for the money and risk jeopardizing re-election? As for the Madam Chair, my observations are that she has been massively civilly disrespectful. While public comments have included now dozens of requests with many pleases and thank yous for answers to the election results in the election process, it has been Madam Chair whose intentional actions have been to have the claims stricken from the public record and the claimants executively shoved out of the room. How far behind silencing the protest is hiding the evidence? How far behind silencing the protests is hiding the evidence? The question now is not, did something happen to alter the election results, or the election process? The question is, who will be doing the investigation and what light will be brought to bear on the connection of the election results, the correction of the election and the election results and the election process? Who will be the poll watchers in the computer room? It's not where the ballots are cast, but where they are counted that is in question. It's not where the ballots were cast, but where they were counted and who was present. That is the question. All of this generally works better when people running the process maintain cordial relations with reality. People earn trust by demonstrating their allegiance to reality. Have we not noticed in our country and now in our county that people in authority don't tie themselves to this reality? So the question again, is the Kane County Board agreement capable? Who will answer the questions concerning the election results, and the election process? And I thought the Madam Chair would be here. Who speaks for the county board?
Oh, this microphone's a little slow today. Do we have a Terry Bauer?
Good morning. I'm going to speak on the alliance money this morning. Prior to 2020, private funding of elections was almost unheard of in the entire country. Privatizing and management of elections undermines the integrity of our elections because it allows private donors to dictate where and how hundreds of millions of dollars will be managed. Enter Zuckerberg and Chan and the Center for Tech and Civic Life, continuing to claim that CTCL money is nonpartisan, but data clearly shows that it is given in strategic areas and to supercharge Democratic turnout and to push turnout away from Republican areas. There was absolutely not one thing about these funds that can be considered partisan. In addition to money, out-of-state people were embedded into key local offices to control how elections were run. The Center for Tech and Civic Life helped install out-of-state operative in Green Bay and other election offices in Wisconsin. This operative requested direct access to Milwaukee Election Commission's voter database and other sensitive data. Why would an out-of-state operative be allowed that kind of access? I ask you that. Is this following state statutes? Who granted this person access? City Clerk Chris Teskey was replaced and pushed out by this out-of-state operative, said that she was verbally abused by the mayor of Green Bay in front of everyone, and staff that were not trained in election law, as well as others who were not even City of Green Bay employees, were running the election. I know a little bit about this because I grew up in Green Bay area. The Center for Tech and Civic Life leadership has a history of working for democratic and leftist causes and has been described as, quote, the Democratic Party's Hogwarts for digital wizardry, unquote. I ask, would you be okay if millions of dollars of other private money was used in elections and the opposing party won because of this money? Would your answer be the same regarding all of this? This is about whether private money should be allowed to be used in any election period. Private money funding elections is so controversial that currently our House of Representatives is considering a bill that would include a federal ban on this kind of money to run elections. It's called the Protect American Election Administration Act, and it would block the, quote, private takeover of government election administration, unquote. Mark Zuckerberg and wife Priscilla Chan spent more than $400 million on the 2020 election, and they said they would not provide such Zuckerberg money again. Last year, the CTCL that distributed most of the 2020 money announced the creation of the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence, an organization to train local election officials and give out more money. It is that very organization that brings me here today because Kane County, as you know, has received a $2 million award from Alliance for Election Excellence. I urge all of you to reject all of the Alliance money, to return the money that Alliance has already distributed to Kane County, and to reject the entire contract with the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence. Whether you are Democratic, Republican, or independent, people with integrity simply cannot accept this money. Thank you for your time.
Is there a Kim Sieber?
Hi there. This is actually a repeat from last time because I'm not sure anybody listens. I'm not sure anybody cares. Because we all seem to come here, we all say our thing, we never hear anything. We don't know if you guys, if you're just like we might as well be speaking to a blank wall. But I'm going to say it again. I'm a concerned citizen and I want to go back to the old fashioned paper ballots that are hand counted, not by a machine that can be easily manipulated. We have not had honest, fair elections since voting has been done electronically. Mail-in ballots should be few and far between and only when requested by a registered voter. People have a month to mail in their ballot, so if not received by election day, oh well, hence the phrase, if you snooze, you lose. Voting is not about one political party versus another. We are all just want to know that we, the people, have selected whomever has won an election. We can all accept whomever wins when the voting is 100% honest and fair. But that is not what has been happening in Kane County and most of the country, due to the fact that computers can easily be manipulated and votes changed in seconds. As a poll watcher, I noticed that most people gave their ID and driver's license, even though it is not required. So it would be very easy to require a photo ID for all registered voters. Another bonus for using paper ballots is the fact that there is a huge cost savings by hand counting and not using machines. That is according to a report by Linda Rands of the Course of America in Missouri. Definitely a big win for all taxpayers. We won't need any of the machines. We won't need the $11 million that Jack Cunningham says we need for new machines. New machines that are supposed to, he said, count the paper ballots. Whatever, we're back to the same old baloney. And with paper ballots, we definitely do not need to accept, which I'm going to say it again, with the dollars which would have strings attached. No one gives away that amount of money without a reason that requires payback. It is all very nefarious. Thank you.
Up, Mr. Kenneth Zitko.
Hi there. I've been a King County resident and voter for the past 32 years. And I've come today just to share a couple of ideas. Some of it is repeating what others have said. But I think in that regard, it's also important to understand that I think you're sensing the tone of the crowd. We're tired and impatient. We're asking the same questions and not finding answers. And I guess it's important to deliver as well that as you talk about having something in the near future where we get some answers, you know, we're not looking for platitudes or some kind of, you know, unclear or undetailed response. We've been here for 3 months asking questions, a lot of detailed questions. So we're hoping for detailed answers. So while we, the people of Kane County, come and share our concerns, and grievances about the way the consolidated election unfolded and the opportunities for unethical behavior to be behind the grant from the U.S. Alliance of Election Excellence, I want to point out a few things so that you can all see what we all see. And please look and see. We saw the way the April election was conducted, and it was unacceptable. We've met with the state's attorney, and we had a follow-up meeting set for this week. It had to be pushed to next week, but still we're engaging and we're hopeful. To date, we've submitted 50 witness affidavits from poll workers that observed election code violations. So we have serious problems that must be addressed. You can look anywhere and understand or verify that the CTCL, others have mentioned it, the Center for Tech and Civic Life, is behind the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence. As you look further through recent news stories in both conservative and liberal news sources, you'll find that the U.S. Alliance, or CTCL, is working hard to lay the groundwork for their plan to manage the 2024 election. What do I mean when I say manage? I mean manipulate, cheat, make sure that that election turns out the way that they want it to. Just this week, it was reported in several online news sources that the U.S. Alliance for Elections is building storage facilities, not just in Macoupin, Illinois, but that would be the one that we use here. But they're doing that across the country in order to help counties store their election equipment and their ballots. So what do we see when we read a story like this? We see an organized group infiltrating our county who will tell us how to run our election. They will provide equipment, they'll provide consultants, they'll provide our ballots. Then they'll store our equipment for us, and they'll store our ballots for us. And then at the end of the night, we have the mail-in ballot counting. So at the end of 2 weeks later, they will tell us what our election, how it turned out. They'll tell us the results. So we're basically talking about slowly nibbling away, and before you know it, we've outsourced our whole election. In Congress, we also see the Protect American Elections Administration Act. As mentioned earlier, that's a ban for private money in all elections. Again, what do we see? We see that we're right. This is a problem. This is a way to infiltrate elections and to make them unfair, not a way to help, these supposedly philanthropic organizations giving us a helping hand. They're not giving us a helping hand. They're buying their way in to control the election. So if you're willing to see it, it's easy to come to the same conclusion. The same things we've been coming here and asking for the past 3 months. Refuse the grant from the U.S. Alliance of Election Excellence and decline their offer for partnership.
Next, Jean Meyer.
Hello. I am too old to think that lies and fraud are rare. I like those passwords and different things, and it's good to change them often for our bank accounts and credit cards. Anyway, I'm thinking you guys probably all think the same. But I'm not going to say what I was going to say because I want to turn this around a little bit more positive. I've been wanting to say, Mr. Sanchez, that you have run this the last few meetings I've been to with dignity and fairness, and I appreciate that. And so you gave us 5 minutes for anything on the election. I think that was really fair, more than fair, because all of the election isn't on agenda. I'm delighted that we have finally set a special committee next week that we're going to be able to discuss the consolidated election and the Alliance grant. Thank you so very much for trying to set that up for us. And on the other hand, the whole thing could end up being a sham, or it could be really real for people that love their country and know that what happens here at the county level affects the ability for the next generation to have a free country. And so I'm going to end. There was a really nice board member last meeting who said, you got to tell the board what you want them to do. So I would ask you to give us a chance at that committee meeting next week so that we could actually have some back and forth and ask some questions and get answers. So I thank you very much for the movement that I see forward in this, and I'll be praying about that. Thank you.
Debbie Kanarowski.
Good morning. This is the third public service meeting we have been discussing the U.S. Alliance. This is 3 months with nothing accomplished, at least from what we can see out here in the audience. All of us that work in non-government careers know that we would be fired if nothing was done in 3 months. Over the past 4 speeches, I have explained, as many others have, that the alliance should not be accepted. It was at the first county meeting that I handed out this packet. How many of you have taken the time to read what I handed out? Because in there is the agreement. And as a reminder, the agreement was made, as the state's attorney mentioned, with the board. So it is now incumbent upon the board to do some action in reference to this. We need, I understand that the board, the clerk does not report to the board. However, as I mentioned, the agreement is with the board. The state's attorney stated in a previous meeting that she made revisions and they were given back to the clerk. Isn't it time that the board takes some action? Does it need to be legal in order to have the clerk respond? I see that we have Mr. Pollack sitting here, and he is part of the election department. I think it's time he's held accountable as well for answering our questions. There is $650,000 here in Kane County currently. As I mentioned previously in previous discussions, there are policies in place that require competitive bids on the equipment. Who is going to ensure these policies are being followed? Is it time to stop sitting on your hands and get this resolved? Certainly, a resolution can be made to not accept outside money for our election process going forward. And I think it's incumbent on the entire board to make that resolution so that we no longer have to continue this fight. Furthermore, the budget is coming up. Are you prepared to reduce the clerk's budget in order to make a difference, to make him understand that you mean business too, and he cannot do this to you as the board? We are asking for transparency and fair and accurate elections. I don't think that's too much to ask for as American citizens. That's what we expect. That's what we've always been told that would happen, but that's not what we're seeing. Please return, as everyone keeps asking. I don't know how many times we have to ask this, but we're going to keep asking to return the money and to write this resolution to say that we will not accept the outside money from outside organizations. Thank you. And we sure look forward to the response next week.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak at this time in person or online who I don't have on my sheets?
Airman Sanchez.
Mr. Avalar, I'll recognize you, and then we have a man with his hand up who will be up next.
Thank you. Just want to begin with thank you for Public Service Committee to listening to all the people. I do echo the other person who said you've been terrific as far as the, that's not quote, but that you have been the decorum, and so is the committee members. I want to just state a couple of things. First, I firmly believe that Kane County's elections are being run accurately and fairly. Can there be improvements made? Yes. By all means, I have no doubt in the integrity of the results of the April 4th election or any election here in Kane County in recent years, at least in the nearly 30 years that I've lived in the county. But I do encourage improvements. A couple of things I've been hearing this morning. I would encourage some of the speakers who've been saying, who they talked about, for instance, the Protect American Election Administration Act, or HR 2934. If that is something that people want to pursue and ask the county to help, I would respectfully suggest that that also be taken to the legislative committee. The county is just in the process of hiring a lobbyist for both federal and state issues. And many of the operations of our elections must go through, are being done through state statute. The clerk's office, when it comes to early voting and the timing for early voting, that's being directed by the state, especially from 2020 and again in 2021 with whether Senate Bill 1863, and I don't remember the other legislation number. If something needs to be changed out of Springfield or even Washington, may I suggest the voters, all concerned citizens, take advantage of working with the legislative committee. And I'm confident in co-chair Gums and Linder that they will take this and add this to a legislative agenda, provided that the public also supports and makes these wishes known. So again, HR 2934, that's a valid federal issue, and certainly that can be taken through our federal lobbyists once that they are in place and formally hired. But I am also looking forward to the explanations from the state's attorney concerning April 4th, because some of the stories I've heard, they could be irregularities. And last but not least, I'm just reading HR 2934. One of the co-sponsors is Congresswoman Claudia Tenney out of upstate New York. And just to bring people up to speed when it comes to questionable elections and how bad it can get, when she was elected to Congress in 2020, she lost her seat for a term. It took 94 days to count the vote and declare a winner in that race. I don't want to see anyone have to go to that extreme, but that is fact. It took 94 days, and all the election rigmarole in the legal system was taking place too, but it took 94 days to declare a winner. We don't want to see that anywhere in the country, let alone in Kane County. So keep up the good work there in the Public Service Committee, and we will look forward to that special meeting in the next week or two. Thank you.
Hey, sir, I believe you had your hand up. You wanted to deliver a public comment before we moved on.
Good morning. My name is Brian Anderson. We live in Sugar Grove, Illinois. I came late and was really reluctant to speak anyway after listening to everybody. I was dumbfounded that this has been a discussion for 90 days. Leadership requires immediate action. And just kind of sitting and listening, 5 things just popped into my head. The first thing we did, we all stood, Pledge of Allegiance. Are those platitudes for us, or do they mean something? And you should have to ask yourself, liberty and justice for all, not for a few. So the U.S. Alliance and the grant, I'm not sure if that's for everyone. Number 2, I don't have to go very far when I get on the website, and this is your words, not mine. Okay. Mission and vision statement. It's outstanding. The mission of Kane County government is to be accountable to the citizens. Let me just stop you right there. We don't need to go any further. That is your job, to be accountable for the citizens. Now, as one of the people got up and praised what's going on in your leadership, I would say I would agree. You know, when you raise your hand, I want to be in civic service. That is a huge, huge responsibility. And beyond all of your private sector experiences and education and 2 or 3 decades, in some cases, 4 or 5 decades of service, there's a couple components that must always be there. And again, this is now personal reflection. Every decision that you make for the 400 and some, 540 some thousand people that live in Kane County? Are those decisions guided with character and integrity? Only you can ask yourself that each and every morning. Character and integrity. What two great virtues to have. That's what it takes to lead in a righteous manner. I'm going to leave with my last comment. I was dumbfounded, and I don't like to regurgitate gossip, and if I'm speaking out of turn, I do want to be corrected. I believe the Madam Chair is here today, sitting in the back. Is that correct? Somebody brought to my attention that at one of these last meetings, let's squelch these public comments. I'm not sure if they need to be in. Censorship has no place in a free country. Zero, none. We can agree to disagree agreeably on a lot of points. That's the robust debate that took place in the public square 200 years ago. We wrestled with tough decisions, but to want to censor the very essence of being accountable to the citizens, I'm sorry, and I'm going to leave with a bold statement, and it may be unpopular. Perhaps she should resign. Censorship has no place in any municipality, in anywhere in the United States. Thank you.
You all for coming to speak today is appreciated. And as soon as we have that special meeting of Public Service Committee scheduled in stone, we will have it out there and broadcast to you all so that you can put it on your calendars. So hopefully we'll have that for you soon. Oh, I think, Mr. Tepe, did you still have a public comment you wish to deliver before we moved on? Mr. Tepe, is this on agenda or off agenda?
This is off agenda. Good morning. My name is Vern Tepe and I live in Elgin. I speak from this podium because there is an issue of major concern that is not on the agenda today. I refer to the article that was in the Kane County Chronicle in an online blog regarding the dismissal of a longtime employee in the treasurer's office and the rumors surrounding that dismissal. What really happened? Was this employee targeted for dismissal by the treasurer? What are the details of the settlement? How much money did this cost us this time? Why have criminal charges not been filed? Why has this governing board not been informed of the issues and facts? Has the treasurer committed malfeasance of office? Is there video and/or audio of the key incident? Does our treasurer manage with fear and intimidation? Is this a continuing pattern of abuse by an individual? What costs were incurred when earlier issues happened and payouts were made? Is this yet another instance where he is accused of harassment, intimidation, and demotion? Regardless, this is despicable behavior. I hope that my fellow board members will join me in my outrage and require that an independent counsel be assigned to research this incident, all of the details that led to this dismissal, and all prior incidents involving our current treasurer. Only after receiving this report will we begin to know what really happened. Thank you.
Okay, we'll be moving on from public comment to our finance report. If you have any questions, you can direct them to the finance department, recorder's office. They had nothing for us outside of their monthly report. Treasurer collector, Mr. Laza, do you have an update for us or report you would like to deliver at this time?
I'd be happy to. What a welcome that is to join in your work. First of all, let me give my report, and then I'd like to respond to the false accusation. Would that be okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my report today addresses the King County collection of approximately $1.5 billion in property taxes. I filed my report about 7 to 8 days ago. The process of collecting that much money is really very interesting. It is much more challenging than it appears on the surface, and our staff members in collection and support are doing a fine job. I think it was John F. Kennedy who said, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. That's been modified, by the way, in current culture that, when the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. But it's in our office with our staff, when the going gets tough, they're at their very best. So, and I'd like to mention by name, in the collections area, Maria Herrera, who's the deputy treasurer, does just a remarkable job. Michelle and Veronica in her area, and then in the support area, the manager there is Cindy Christopher, Elizabeth, and Kathy. And then our seasonal employees who have been there for a very long time. Many of you might recognize the name Della Winkler. She's back and she's doing a great job. When people come in to pay property taxes, one of the biggest expenses that they pay during the whole year, they come in and I can hear in the back office, "Hey Della, how's everything going?" "Oh, just fine, Harry. How are you doing?" So the personal approach that's taken in King County, I think is laudable. 3 of our employees, at least 3, maybe 4 of our employees are bilingual. And to hear the conversation made comfortable, again, when people are making an enormous sacrifice to finance your work, my work, service to 523,000 constituents, it is remarkable how gracefully the staff does that. The great majority of the people who come in are just the finest people. It is true though, and especially I think it's getting even worse these days, a few come in very angry. Last Tuesday, late afternoon, the last person who came in wanted to pay $20,000 in cash to pay. You know that there are banking procedures where once you go over 10,000, there's like 6 pages worth of regulation that go into that. He was animated. Next morning, the first constituent of taxpayer who came in, again, from my office desk, I heard a voice raised. And so I went out into the general room and a very aggressive person was like many of us, feels that the property taxes are too high. And, but the time to argue that is really in this boardroom and in the boardrooms of all the taxing agencies where the spending decisions are made, as opposed to with our staff members. But again, gracefully, gently, staff members went through the process. Actually, the person was offered and took one of the homemade donuts that had been brought in to share among the staff. And I think that sweetened the situation just a little bit. So a bottom line of where we stand. Oh, by the way, I've been told that the most important time, and I'll be on the floor that day, is on June 2nd. Everybody needs to come in and pay that first installment at least on June 1st. But I understand that as we get closer and closer, those conversations get harder and harder. But the hardest conversations come on Friday, June 2nd, when people come in to pay their taxes. And some folks don't understand why there are penalties on top of the enormous property taxes. And to protect those people who pay on time, we've got to hold the line with the folks who come in late with those penalties. It's going to be a challenge, but it's a challenge every year. And I just ask for the appreciation and respect from board members for the function of that office. We are ahead of last year by about 29%, $30 million more collected as of last night. I'd like to thank many of the board members who have paid online. I heard from Dale Berman, who sold, by the way, as an IBM salesperson back, it's got to be 50 years ago, sold the Kane County government its first computer. So Bill Leonard did it. I put a short video, although it's longer than I would have wanted it to be. But my first time going through paying online, and it is true with, people understand my lack of facility with computers because I've always had the most help. But if I can do it, it's like anybody can do it. And I'm not sure, Cliff, if you're one of the people who paid online, but I think that you might have been one of the people to do it online too. We also made our first distribution to a taxing body that went out yesterday on May 17th. So that's the report. I'd be happy to answer any question on that part of my presentation.
Any questions for Treasurer Lawson?
Okay, let me, and I guess I should thank Mr. Tepe for his longtime opposition to the work that I do. I understand it's political. I accept that. I guess I should thank him for providing an opportunity for me to address some of the pernicious kind of political rumors that circulate. Put gently, the people circulating the rumors and gossip, that they have inaccurate information. We have a documented agreement that the former employee and Kane County voluntarily, mutually, and amicably parted ways. The agreement was drafted by Jamie Mosser, our state's attorney. Any of you are certainly welcome to receive a copy. It's signed by both parties. So despite what people say who aren't familiar with all the circumstances, both parties signed their names to that document that was drafted again by the state's attorney's office. Referring to any specific occasion, on that day, I was going out to meet the auditors, the outside auditors. And really, any of you who are familiar with accounting, that's like going to the candy store for an accountant, to go out and meet the outside auditors. That's great fun. So it's a happy occasion. It was also a happy occasion because it was the day before we were going to present some of the initial findings to the Finance Committee as far as a performance or lack of performance of Kane County. So what was said during that, or what has been said in the gossip, and I know I shouldn't be repeating gossip, but let's be specific. It says berate, yell, and push. First of all, I do criticize performance. Don't criticize that employee. And if anybody can find any reference, I will buy them a Whopper, because that just hasn't happened in my, not publicly, not on the campaign trail, not privately. I have criticized the board. I mean, I called it, I brought it to the Finance Committee and to the Executive Committee and to the board. And I mean, 3 Whopper mistakes. It's part of why I ran. As far as yelling, in 10 years here, There has been plenty to yell about, but I have not yelled. These good people who come and keep asking after 90 days, 120 days of inaction, they don't yell. I don't yell. I don't do it at home. I never did in business. I don't do it here. And then finally, the idea that I could push someone, any person who believes that, well, there's nothing that I can say that would change that person's mind. But there is, and you know, Mr. Tepe, you know that there is video, security camera. I am so fortunate, I'm so blessed that there is security camera video of this occasion when I'm going out to meet the auditors. And if you would, you know that it exists, you know that the state's attorney has offered any of you who want to go and see it to come over to her office and take a look for yourself, and you can make up your own mind. Was there any of that? And there was not. And so then it comes down to what I don't object to at all is a discussion about the expense. I know that it's $46,000 in the settlement agreement. And of course, any of you can have a copy of the settlement agreement. I think that settlement agreement, if you do your homework before you come and make a grandstand speech, not from your table, but from the public podium when you're elected official, if the King County Chronicle actually printed the settlement agreement. The $46,000 is about the same amount that the majority of the board approved to spend to find a financial officer, a chief financial officer, I think at the last board meeting, $46,000. Now, the reporter who reported that doesn't have the numbers quite right, but 46,000 in total. 12,000 was earned but not paid benefits. State statute says that has to be paid no matter what. The severance was $34,000. The calculation of that on the state's attorney's recommendation, she was right, that the standard for severance packages, if you Google it, the first thing that comes up is it says 1 to 2 weeks of severance for every year worked. This former employee, 17 years. And so that was the calculation going into the 34,000. We took the lower end at 1 week. So that's the standard. We took care of it. The parties who know the most about the circumstance have signed their name to an official document that was prepared by the state's attorney's office. And the state's attorney has assured me that any questions that anyone has, she'd be happy to take care of answering them, and we'll go from there. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Treasurer Lawson. Supervisor of Assessments, Mr. Armstrong.
Good morning, members of the committee. My report begins on page 36 of your packet. Because of the timing of getting reports in, of course, by the time you see them, there's going to be additional information to be included. So if you want to get the information up to date as of this morning, you can make the following corrections. Rutland Assessments originally certified on April 17th. The Rutland Township Assessor contacted me and wished to make some updates. And so his certification date has been revised to May 3 as he updated his entire file. The Geneva Township Assessment Roll was certified on May 10th. We have certified a final equalization factor for Sugar Grove Township, and that's the same as the projected factor of 1.0832. The monthly production numbers are on page 37. Rather than highlight anything as I usually do, I do have a resolution to come before the committee. So in the interest of time, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the reports. And then when you're ready, I can talk about the resolution.
Any questions for the Supervisor of Assessments? Nope. Okay.
Thank you. The resolution is on page 38. The executive summary is on page 39. This uses a word emergency within the resolution. Emergency is a statutory term. It refers to something that comes right out of the property tax code. An assessment emergency exists when there are going to be more assessment complaints than the Board of Review can handle promptly. And when I say promptly, I mean getting tax bills out on time. Now, without going through the entire calendar of the tax cycle, one of the things we want to make sure of is that this tax cycle functions on a timely process. If it does not function on a timely process, distributions, which have already taken place for the 2022 payable 2023 year, cannot take place on time, which means that local governments do not get their funding and they will not be able to disperse fundings out. Now, they get one half of the year's distributions on or about June 1st, if done on time. Now, most of them will have reserves. That means a few days late will not mean that they can't make payments. But the other thing that they do is those first installments go into the bank. And even at today's somewhat low interest rates, they're currently in the 4% range. Looking at the county's distribution, you're going to be looking at a typical loss to local government budgets of about $60,000 per day if tax bills are late. So you can understand why we seek to make sure that they're going to be on time. So what we do with the property tax code is appoint additional members to the Board of Review. Now, the additional members have to be legally qualified the same as the main members. They have to have experience and training in property valuation. They have to have passed a very rigorous exam offered by the Illinois Department of Revenue, which I'm told has a failure rate of more than 50%. So typically what we do is we have this resolution. Once the county board has agreed to this, it gives the county board chair the authority to appoint those additional members. We have typically appointed everyone who is a county resident and willing to serve. We're also allowed to appoint people who live just over the line in adjoining counties. So we have some interest in there as well. For instance, they might be just over the DuPage County line in Aurora. But as these are all practicing real estate appraisers, they've all got extensive valuation experience in the local market. This allows us to operate on time. It's already been budgeted at the amount of $32,500. We only spend that if we use them because that is a per diem amount. That is kind of the explanation of what this does here. It's something we do every year, at least in my past 17 years here, and I'm certain before that. But I'll be happy to answer any questions any member of the committee has on this topic.
Okay, first I'll entertain a motion in a second for the resolution appointing additional members of the Board of Review.
Tepe moves.
Williams moves, Tepe seconds. Any questions for the supervisor?
Mr. Chair Gums.
Gums?
I do have a quick question on the language in the resolution.
Yes.
Therefore be it.
Use your microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. The therefore be it resolved section. Sorry, you said it was on page 38.
Yes.
Got distracted here. Here we go. It indicates, and I don't know if this is normal, so I'm asking, it indicates that the chairman of the county board may appoint. Is that normal language in this process, or historically I read in the therefore be it resolves that through the county board, the county chair has?
I guess I'm not quite sure what your question is. To the extent you're asking whether the function of this means you authorize the county board chair to make the appointments, that is correct. They do not come back to this board. What it does is authorize the county board chair to make those appointments.
Okay, that clarifies it, because that's been a question that's been asked. So
yes, I believe sometime prior to 2006, the county board actually did take action on those, but it's not authorized by the plain language of the property tax code. And so we reviewed it with the state's attorney at that time and said, this is the process we should be using. And we've revised all subsequent resolutions accordingly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, the clerk, please call the roll.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Lewis, Lewis, yes. Surges, Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Williams, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
approved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Armstrong, for being here.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Regional Office of Education, do we have anybody?
Yep. My name's Katie Algram. I'm the Director of Innovative Professional Learning for the Kane ROE, and Pat Del Santo asked me to come today to speak to you about a grant that we're in year 2 of right now through the State Board of Education, which focuses on social emotional learning and trauma-informed practices for our schools here in Kane County. And so this money was awarded to all ROEs and ISCs throughout the state to help support our schools in the aftermath of COVID and helping support our students and our teachers. And so the goal for this grant is that we support 75% of our schools within the 3 years. And so we're happy to announce that in year 2, we've already serviced 63% of our schools in Kane County. So we have 1 more year to go with that. And with this money, we've been able to perform youth mental health first aid trainings. We've been able to provide professional development through our countywide Institute Day, in which all public and private schools are invited to attend. This summer, I'll be trained in emotional poverty, and we'll be able to bring that training to the schools in Kane County, as well as our crucial conversations and adaptive schools. So we've worked with all of our schools here in Kane County to find out what their needs were related to trauma and social emotional learning, and have been able to provide it through those money, and will continue to do so throughout the next year with this grant. Does anybody have any questions?
Ms. Lewis?
So this is a ignorance question. What is emotional poverty?
Yep. So a lot of times what happens is students don't have like the toolkit to be able to overcome some of the trauma that they might encounter throughout their lives. And so it's really helping give students that toolkit to be able to overcome that.
All right. Okay, thank you. Also, I did want to just mention that I think that the job that you guys are doing with the social emotional learning, it's been excellent because it's certainly been needed. And I've seen some of the outcomes of it in East Aurora District 131 and some of the trainings. It's been really good. So congratulations to you for taking this on.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have a question. The kind of curricula that you develop, is there anything available online for the public, for parents that may want to learn more about that and how they can incorporate it if they see a value?
Yep. So right now we're not creating any curriculum, but we're helping support the teachers implementing their curriculum, and the district's curriculum would be found on their websites that they could be more than happy to reach out to. But in terms of like the emotional poverty, like workshops and things that we're putting on, our website has access to all of that, where parents would be more than welcome to attend. That's one of the things as well, is under this grant, everything is offered for free. So anybody is welcome to come.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the Regional Office of Education? Okay, thank you for being here. Mr. Sturgis.
How was your gala?
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. So our Educator of the Year event was very well attended. Thank you for those of you that were able to come. And we were very excited to be able to announce our winner of our Educator of the Year. So it was a great event. Thank you.
Up at the north end for District 300, we have the Foundation for Educational Excellence puts on our Educator of the Year, but we also expanded to have the Staff Member of the Year. And this year, so each school has a table or tables. And one of the candidates, the whole table took off their sport coats and everybody had on t-shirts.
Oh, that's great.
It really, post-COVID, the spirit was vibrant and alive. So
it's really nice to be able to celebrate our educators and the work that they do ongoing, but like you mentioned, especially after COVID.
Yep, truly.
All right. Anything else for the ROE? Okay, thank you very much for being here today. Next up, Veterans Assistance Commission, Mr. Zimmerman.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be pretty brief this morning for our March report that you have in your agenda packets. The only thing really worth mentioning there is we remain very busy in the office, and our veterans received over $500,000 in new benefits for the month of March. And just as a perspective on the return on investment, that's more dollars than what my office will operate on for the entire fiscal year. Also worth mentioning, this month, we trained, cooperatively trained with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, 38 police officers on how to respond to veterans in crisis. That took place at the Kane County Sheriff's Office at no charge to those agencies. 18 different agencies from the FBI down to the local police departments participated in that. And we will be kicking off our ride and cane registration for veterans for their medical appointments that was approved through the ARPA program on June 9th. We'll be reporting on that in the July or August version of this report.
Excellent. Any questions for Veterans Assistance Commission?
Good job, Jake.
Use your microphone even if you're whispering, Mr. Kenyon.
Him about Memorial Day.
Memorial Day is coming up, yes,
Kind of a big day.
indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman,
Thank
for
you.
being here today. What's up, County Clerk's Office? Mr. Pollock is here.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We always want to hear what Mr. Kenyon has to say, so that mic is important. Well, you have a copy of our report. Want to point out a few things. If you look at revenue, at this point in the year, we're at 631,000 brought in so far. We're ahead of 2022, and 2022 was a record year. And remember that the revenue that we do bring in is the revenue that's generated that goes back to the general fund. So we're continuing to bring in more money to help reduce the pressure on property taxes. So we look forward to our role in helping reduce property taxes. The big generator we keep talking about is passports. At this point in the year, we're through April, we're 4 months in, and 2,240 passports. It just, this report goes back, I think, 13 years. 4 months in, we've already beaten 7 of 13 years. We're ahead of the pace from 2022, which set a record. So the demand for travel is great, and we're happy that our one-stop shop is an opportunity for residents of Kane County and actually anywhere to come and get those passports, save time, save money by being able to do everything at once, and that generates revenue for the county. We get a portion of the application fee, and then when they get their pictures taken, it's another ability, an opportunity for us to generate revenue for the county. So we've had really great comments from the public saying it's so much easier to come here and to be able to get everything done at once. So we'd love to provide that service, and we look forward to continuing to push this record pace. Marriage licenses. This is a very popular time for weddings. Just so everyone understands, if your constituents ask you, if you're planning to have a ceremony in Kane County, you have to get a marriage, you have to apply for the marriage license before that wedding. So a lot of people get married in June and July. The marriage license is valid for 60 days. So if people are planning that wedding in June or July and don't want to wait in the lines later on, you can apply for your marriage license now, as long as you're getting married within 60 days. And if you go to our website, you can begin the process of applying for your marriage license online through our online portal. There's a questionnaire. You can start it online. Still have to come in. One of the portions of state law that hasn't been updated, people still have to physically come into the office and pay cash. Hasn't changed, but you can do the questionnaire part online and then come to the office to finish up the process. But again, the applications are valid for 60 days. Your license is valid for 60 days. So if you're planning that wedding in June or July, come and apply for it now. And then we're always seeking grants. Always show you guys, this is we apply for a portion of a grant for reimbursement for election judges. This was the $1,350 we received from the consolidated primary back in February. We've applied for it for the April election. That'll come in probably a month or so. But anytime there's an opportunity for us to receive money and come back to the county, we go for it. So that's the report. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Pollock of the clerk's office?
I have a question. Mr. Young, Mr. Pollock, the $650,000 that was received by the clerk's office from the U.S. Alliance, is that in the ending balance on page 46 in the packet? Does that include the $650,000?
Page 46. Can you pull that up?
Yep.
No. Page 46 appears to be the tax redemption account. So
I just saw the ending balance. I'm just looking at the ending balance.
Yeah, no, that's, I think those are tax accounts.
Okay, where is the $650,000? Do you account for that? And I'm
That's
just,
not, that's not in this report. If you, in finance, you can speak to them. It's in New World somewhere. This is not, this, what you're talking about on page 48 is regarding the tax redemption account.
okay, so then that's in a separate accounting system, or how does that work? I'm not familiar with that.
That's a finance question. Like, is there anyone here from finance to?
This isn't everything that's come in.
This isn't everything,
This
so,
isn't the whole budget, no.
oh, this isn't the whole office. This is only what's a portion of the clerk's.
Yeah. That
office.
chunk of money is in a fund that's being held
Oh, it is.
under the, as
Okay.
far as if we've received it, it's in a fund, yes.
Oh, it's that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So we can get the details from finance though.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be curious for the people that show up here to know that $650,000 is sitting, or is it sitting? Is it at least making money, and has it been spent?
Right.
That would be, I'd like to have that for our next meeting.
Okay, yeah, we'll find the fund account that it's in.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Mr. Chair, Gums. Go ahead.
Oh, Mr. Surges and then Gums. Gums.
Thank you, Mr. Surges. Just wanted to ask you a quick question, Mr. Pollock. Do you believe that the messaging about the passports needs to be amped up or I mean, the messaging is good and that's why our numbers are so great?
I mean, obviously, any messaging is helpful. We
Right.
put out press releases. The King County Connects has mentioned it. I think there's a press release from the communications office from the county board. So certainly it's helpful. Anything that you guys want to do to assist, to let the public know would be great. And we have mentioned on social media. Sometimes the office, when we put stuff out on social media, like especially on Wednesdays, because we're open late, we get a big push of people coming in. So anything we can do is helpful. Because the more money we bring in, we help the county. So
Thank you. The reason I ask is because there's such a substantial difference between then and now. So we should utilize that messaging.
sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Surges and then Ms. Lewis.
I'm almost uncomfortable this morning because we just seem to be ignoring the elephant in the room. And this is the third meeting in a row where the room's been full of people asking questions. And we sit here quietly because we're not supposed to interact. But I'm almost feeling as if comments are being made threatening my performance or lack of performance on specific issues. And it seems like there's three issues at hand: the Alliance grant, the election glitch, and what ability, if any, do we have to change election law? And it's difficult for me to sit here because and be quiet about some of this stuff because I don't believe that election law has anything to do with this board. I believe that it takes this long to get a response for the election glitch that occurred. And the Alliance grant update, this has been months and months, and we still don't even have the basic information as to, is the grant to the county board control, or was it to the clerk's control? And it seems to me, you can't even begin dialogue and conversations without some of these fundamental things being asked. When I left my house this morning or started my day at about 6:30, I looked at the day ahead of me. And quite honestly, it's an uphill battle today. We are being asked later on today in a different committee to begin looking at the budget. But I think the underlying tone there is that we will be making an attempt to understand the limitations of internal controls. And I think that's going to be an exhaustive fight. I think it is going to pit person against person, department against department. It is not going to be something where any of us walk away feeling really good about ourselves. But I think the conversation needs to be had one way or the other. And I'm not advocating it should be this or that. I'm just saying that we should all understand exactly what it is. Because as you've heard from people coming into the room this morning, their words were, we don't truly understand it. And I believe sitting here, I will echo that sentiment because I don't truly understand it. They're demanding information from us. And if I'm understanding internal control, we should be directing them to the office in the next building for the clerk or the state's attorney's office, which is out at the courthouse. But it shouldn't be here, and our silence to not tell them where they can go get that information is problematic for me. I don't enjoy sitting here getting my head kicked in and not being able to say, well, honestly, you should be walking over to that department and their representative is here. Speak to him. Don't speak to us. We've already kind of given what we can or can't do, but we'll take on the fight. And while it is not in direct response to their questions, the overall arch of internal controls is being addressed in a much larger format this afternoon. I have phoned individuals within their group, not their group, the group, trying to glean additional insight as to what their expectations are to just understand if we can even remotely meet those expectations. And I don't know that we can. I don't think some of the things that they're asking are even within our control. But we should be making a statement and giving information back to them instead of just listening quietly with our hands folded and checking our emails and stuff like that. And so I just want to put out there again, the questions of the grant update. Don't even understand whose grant it is yet. The election glitch. Really? I mean, let's just get to the bottom of this and explain it. And I understand Jamie wants to do the state's attorney's office would like to have a special meeting to do this. Does it really need to be a special meeting? How do we get this done? And can we have it done, if not in a special meeting, at least by the next time this committee meets, he, she, whomever is coming here to give that report. And then in terms of giving information as to the authority levels that we have here or direct them to where they should be, I think these are pretty important things that we shouldn't be silent on. We should be giving information on. And Jared, I will tell you this. I agree with all of them that you have been patient. You have been a saint. You have run this committee and listening very well. And I applaud you for that. And I appreciate your camaraderie and your fellowship, because you always pick up the phone and you always take people's phone calls. But I think we're to the point where we need to give some information back. So just for what it's worth.
Ms. Lewis and then Mr. Young.
Okay. I have a much easier question than that. Back to the passport issue. Now that either a passport or a real ID is going to be required for so many things, like even taking my granddaughter to see the bison out at Fermilab, do we think the real ID will then make our passport numbers go down? Or are people getting passports because they don't want to get a real ID?
It's a good question, because the deadline's been pushed back so many times. We thought it was going to be a hard deadline, and this year, well, first we thought it was going to be pre-COVID. It was supposed to be 2017, then 2019. I mean, this went back to post 9/11, and just get pushed back and pushed back. I think the final implementation, or supposedly, will be in 2025. We've prepared for it each time. Either way, people are still going to need their birth records to get that real ID. If they live in Kane County or anywhere, but we have them here, and they'll need them to get their passport. So we're not really sure, but people are traveling at this point, and there's a lot of international travel. So we think that's why the passport situation is there, but we'll probably have a push for the real IDs too. Plus, people can use that passport to get that real ID. If they don't want to take the passport, you just have your license in your pocket, they'll still need it. So it could be both.
Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Young.
I want to thank you, Cliff, for saying all that. And last, I think it was the last public meeting, public service meeting, Rick Williams brought up what is our oversight responsibility of this committee for the specifically for the county clerk's office, and that allowed them to go and accept these funds. Yes, they seem to be a separate entity, but it just seems to me that needs to be fixed. Allowing private money to come in through the back door, us not even knowing about it. And then all of a sudden, here comes this proclamation on February 14th and hey, good job. What? It's private money coming in. And that's what most of these people are very upset about. So we, like Cliff said, we feel helpless as a public service committee, but this is where they come because this is where the clerk comes and this is where they're supposed to come to talk about it on top of coming to the the main county board meeting. So I don't know what oversight we could possibly have, or if we do, or if could we change that in the future so that this kind of stuff never happens again, or one of the speakers says, make some kind of a resolution that eliminates private funding coming into our departments. I mean, it could be that who knows how many departments are accepting private money. I mean, maybe I don't know about the health department. Are they accepting private money? I don't know. I mean, so anyway, that I just wanted to kind of latch on to what Cliff was saying. And these are all questions, but the gentleman in the back, he said, we need to be accountable to the citizens. That is our mission statement. And I think this is how we can be accountable. And if we have to change things, let's change them so that this kind of stuff doesn't happen again.
Chairman. Mr. Williams and then Mr. Tepe.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Sturgis for his comments. I thought they were spot on. At our last meeting, I did ask the state's attorney's office to prepare an executive memo, high-level memo, what exactly our authority is to control and oversight for the clerk's office. I understand we don't have that yet. I'm hoping that's in process. I'm understanding we're going to have a special meeting the next week or two. I think it would be important that be completed before we have our meeting so that everybody knows what exactly our authority and powers are. And then also if the state's attorney could complete its investigation, because this has really gone on long enough and we need to give answers to the people that are sitting in this audience. So thank you.
The investigation, the inquiry is completed. It's just, she wanted to devote an adequate amount of time to it specifically and not take up time on other things. So that's the only issue at this point is just scheduling conflicts.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Tepe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Understanding the way government works is not easy. And believe me, it's a challenge every day sometimes to understand detailed aspects of it. But in this case, the county clerk reports to the people. He doesn't report to the board. And the people that are coming and objecting to this issue or any issue really want to have a dialogue about it. And there's no way we can provide them with a dialogue. And even if we did provide them with a dialogue, we don't have the oversight to tell another elected official what to do. Now, I personally had conversations with some of the people where I said, I know you want to have a dialogue. You need to have that dialogue with Mr. Cunningham. And they said, he wouldn't answer their letters. He would throw their letters away. And I said, believe me, I will go to the meeting with you. Send me a copy of the letter. I will be there and we'll get your questions answered. And that's, to me, a big part of it. It's communication. And it's disturbing that in many instances, those responses, when someone goes over to, an elected official's office, they're not believed. And, so as a consequence, people keep coming back. So I will repeat my, offer. I'll go with anybody to help you see that your questions get answered. Okay, thanks.
All right. Anything else before we move on? Okay.
One more thing.
Mr. Young.
Mr. Young, Mr. Pollack mentioned another a grant that you were going to be getting for election judges. Could you repeat that again, please?
Yes, we apply for reimbursement from the state for a portion of the election judge.
Okay, so this will be coming from the state.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Other business, we have none. No need for executive session.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Oh, Mr. Tepe.
Okay. I stood up at the podium and
Louis, you had something to say as well. Yeah. okay.
I stood up the podium and asked some questions. I have some current concerns about one, making sure that employees here are protected. And I will be addressing those to the HR committee and speaking with Mr. Surgis about it. Okay. And I also have concerns to make sure that any pattern isn't completed because I've documented information of earlier situations where money has been paid out, substantial sums of money have been paid out based on many of the rumors and allegations that are occurring. So I would like to continue with requesting that a special investigator be appointed because I believe that the state's attorney, it's impossible for the state's attorney to serve an elected official, the county, and the employees of the county when an issue like this occurs. So I'd be interested in some advice as to where I should go based upon our complicated structure of government to request that this happen.
That would be the state's attorney's office. Any outside counsel has to go through them. So I think you have their number. Well, yeah, obviously, but that would be the office to discuss that.
I think that question would be addressed to the state's attorney.
Yeah.
Not
herself.
me.
Ms. Lewis.
Okay, somewhere along the same lines, I have been a little concerned about reading about this thing with the treasurer's office in the paper, you know, because you get half information. And I listened to Mr. Tepe, I listened to our treasurer, and what I think we should do, you know, for lack of anything else, is I would like to, as a board member, go over and look at the tape and look at all these documents as a board member. But I don't think we need 24 board members plus the chairperson all going over to Jamie Mosser's office to look at it. So I would be willing to go with several other board members, you know, and look at it and just see what's happening.
And her office is available for that desire. So, Mr. Young, quickly.
Okay, with three things. We can discuss this later. I have three things. You know, based upon everything that's happened with the clerk's office and the elections and how they handled the April election, I would like to discuss revoking that proclamation that was made where they were granted the $2 million for being a center of excellence, because it appears that they are not. So I'd like to discuss that. Someone brought up paper ballots. I'd love to have a discussion about that. I did call DuPage County and I did talk to someone about paper ballots, and they've only been on paper ballots for 2 years. I'd love to have a conversation in this committee or wherever it needs to happen to discuss how we could go in that direction. And thank you.
Okay. All right. We have no need for executive session. If I could have a motion, unanimous consent for placing the reports on file.
Williams so moves.
Williams moves. Any objection? Hearing none. I need a motion and a second to adjourn.
Williams moves.
Williams moves.
I'll second.
Young seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. That was a quick one.
And you have been deemed a saint. Wow.
I do what I can do.